Right, today we're going to be trying to cast a figure that I sculpted. It's a figure of a character from the TV show Space 1999. It's just a little 120mm made in milliput with a wood body to give them a bit of rigidity. We're going to be trying to cast him in resin. It's something that I used to do quite a while ago, but haven't done in quite a long while. And so the things we're going to use today, we have a resin starter kit. This was from Easy Composites, an internet-based company, and it was a starter kit where you get pretty much everything you need. Silicone rubber to make the mould, you get some activator catalyst to set the rubber, and you get some little mixing bowls, some cups, some gloves, a couple of brushes, and then you also get a kilogram each of cast-in resin. It's 2-part cast-in resin, and you mix it at 100% to 100%. It needs a good shake, settled all along the bottom, as you can see. But before we do that, before we get anywhere near casting it, we have to make the mould. And the way I'm going to do that, and this is not necessarily the only way of doing it, is to make a small box using foam core, and then hot glue the small box around him. He's going to be embedded in a clay base. I've got some just general clay. You can use plasticine. This stuff's a lot cheaper than plasticine. And it's a bit cold, so I'm going to have to make sure I knead that quite well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knead this, and I'm going to show you embedding him in the clay. Okay, so what I've done, if you're very careful and do it in sort of 10-second bursts, you can microwave the plasticine. That gives it a bit of heat, and then it's much easier to use, especially if it's a big block like that. It's been sat on the shop shelf for who knows how long. And what we're going to do is make a slab for Victor to lay on. It'll be a little bit wider than he is, and then we're going to cut out so that he sits so that the plasticine comes halfway along him, and that's going to be the what we call the mould line, the seam line. What we do is just got some dental tools, and we're just going to mark it where we need to dig out. And just to be rough, and then just scoop out. So you've got my main tools that I use on everything. Here's a scalpel and 2 old, slightly beat up dental tools. I pretty much use that sculpting everything. It just needs to go down a little bit more. You don't need expensive tools to do modelling at home. You just need a bit of imagination and trial and error to get around any problems you might come across. As you can see, he's embedded in there. Well, it doesn't have to go exactly halfway, because we're going to run the clay, making little snakes, and we run that along where we want the seam to be. Now the seam for this one I'm going to do above where there's a zip detail, because I don't want the zip detail to become obliterated. And again, only needs to be rough to start with, and then we can tidy it all up afterwards. On his arm, I'm going to go below the zip detail. tidier you can get this seam, the tidier your seam on the kit will be, and the less mould lines you're going to have to cut off. You don't want too many undercuts on the mould line, so really wants to go about halfway around the figure. It doesn't have to be exact, but if you have undercuts, so say there was an arm coming out and that was stuck out into the mould, you run the risk of damaging your mould when you release your figure. This I don't know. I'm not saying this is the perfect way to do it, this is how I used to do it, and it seemed to work okay. I'm sure everyone has a different way of... So there we go, I think that's pretty much there. And so it didn't take long, and he's now embedded halfway up. What we're going to do now is use foam board and the hot glue gun to make the sides of the mould, and you want about a quarter of an inch around the deepest parts, and we're going to use that to seal it. So what we're going to do is cut off some foam board. So we're going to the wall. So that's going to be plenty deep enough to give us, again, quarter of an inch-ish. So use just a brush end and make some locating pins. And these just mean that when the other half of the silicone is on, you've then got pins to line up so that your kit, your mould, your two halves can only go together one way. Our glue gun. Make sure nothing leaks out. And so you can put it in something so it doesn't make a mess, but it's a waste of moulding material. Just have a look at your mould, make sure it's all okay. And what I'm going to do, this is the sort of tricky bit, is roll more snakes and just feed them into any gaps you might have on the figure. I used to use a product called RTV, room temperature vulcanizing rubber, and it was horrible messy stuff. I've never used the silicone we're going to be using today. I'm hoping it all works okay. Quick check, make sure there's nothing on the figure. There we go. So what I'm going to do now is spray that with release agent, which I think is in my shed, hopefully, and then we'll mix some silicone. That'll be fun. Right, I found my mould release. Ambersil. This is a very, very old tin. Okay, there's the old Tiventi address. So you don't need much, just and you get everything in the kit to do this with. And we just need to look at, sorry, knock the camera down. We just need to look at the amounts. 24-hour cure time, 2 hours pot time, so plenty of time to muck about with. 100 parts of silicone to 5 parts of catalyst by weight. Okay. And we can always add to it. Remember, this is by weight. 100. So that's the stuff. Flammable. So 5. Okay, so now we're just going to mix. You want to mix it thoroughly, but you don't want to sort of whisk it because you don't want air bubbles to form. You notice it's blue, so you can see when it's thoroughly absorbed, which is quite good. It doesn't look like it holds bubbles particularly, which is good. See, it's lovely. Right, what we're going to do is just start in pouring in one corner and let it find its own level in the mould. Okay, so I've mixed a bit more, poured it in, and then tap it down. Looks like the bubbles are rising to the surface, which is good. So now it's a case of leave that to cure overnight and come back tomorrow. We can cast the other half. Right, well, it's been 24 long hours. You can see it's gone off nice and rubbery. And if you don't want to poke holes in the top to check it, you can always check the mixing cup. There's a way of seeing if it's gone off. So now what we've got to do is basically take the top off, take all the plasticine out, and then add more silicone to bring it up to the right level. I'm going to try and keep this in one piece. There we go. You can see there's the plasticine upside down, and we've got to take that out carefully. There we go. And just carefully, see, once you've got a bit out, it's not too difficult to get the rest. I've had a little bit of leakage on the mould, but not too much. You see, there's the back of the figure that was covered up, and you just got to make sure all the plasticine is removed. And then just make sure that the seam line is clear. Straight in. So there we go, you can see it's nice, clean, halfway up. If your walls would have been tall enough, you could just fill at that point. But these are not going to be tall enough because that is only just over there. It saves me a big job. So rather than build this up, so to be honest I didn't have any more of this, I've now pushed it down. Right, so I've got a couple of clamps, just to clamp sides, just to squeeze it a little bit tight so that there's no leakage. And then we're just going to use release agent. Okay, so I've mixed, weighed out and mixed some more silicone. I'm just making sure that's all nicely blended, one even colour, no streaks. There we go. So it's not hideously expensive, but it's not what you'd call cheap. The starter set, I think including postage and VAT, was about 60 quid. So now we gotta wait another 24 hours. Right, it's been 24 hours. The second half of the mould is cured. So just foam board, so we can just pop it off. Interestingly, I don't know if you can see it, the two halves of the mould are slightly different shades of blue. Hopefully the release agent means it should come apart quite nicely. And we want to be careful taking this off for the first time. There we go. Take old Victor out. Under. And that's the two halves of the mould. And they should fit together nicely. What I will do is make up some resin, and then I'm going to spread it in the parts that you can't get to. Then clamp it together, and you mix this 100% to 100%. And this one, which seems to have settled a bit, so I'm going to give it a good shake. Probably not the best thing to do because it will put air in the resin, but it's so settled. There we go. Right. I'm going to say this is a 50-50 mix on this one. So we can fill up, see how much is there. We might need to add some more. I may have made a bit too much resin this first time, but you can see I'm just trying to get resin into all the fingers, the com lock, anywhere there might be a clamp these together. So the resin doesn't run out. And it's just a case of filling it. We'll let that go off and we'll see what happens. Okay, it's been about 20 minutes and the resin, I poured a little bit into a lid just to make sure it's gone off. It's gone off nicely, it looks a good resin. You need to take it apart really carefully, much like you took the master out. There's a few air bubbles. His feet came out nicely, his nose came out nicely. I'm very, very pleased with that one. He's come out really well. Not bad seam line. All the detail I wanted has come out. I think that's very good. So, from beginning to end, from a master to a caster. See you again.